Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 6th of December, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So another update on the MEV-boost ecosystem today. This time a new chart from Tony here, who's an Ethereum researcher and PhD student. He's got a nice little chart here showing MEV-boosted slot share cumulative. Now slot share being block, obviously in Proof of Stake Ethereum, we refer to blocks as slots here. And as you can see, it's showing the same trend, I guess, that I've been highlighting lately about Flashbots dominance coming down. Now, this data is from the 15th of September to the 1st of December. And you can see here that the market share for other relayers is growing, especially Bloxroute Max Profit, which is number 2 currently. But you can see Flashbots' dominance is coming down quite clearly in this chart. And obviously, we have a bunch of other relayers that are just coming online now, and we're going to have to wait probably 6 months or so to see what the market share looks like. And then Bert from Flashbots points out here that he thinks this is due to some external builders on Bloxroute getting better. You should be able to confirm with data. And then Tony says your intuition may be right, especially Beaver build landed many payloads on the Bloxroute relay recently, much more than on the Flashbots relay. I derived that info looking at the Sankey diagram on MEV-boost.pics, knowing that Beaver build isn't in the business that long yet. And I actually came across this website today, MEV-boost.pics, that I hadn't seen before, that basically shows in, real time, or more updated than every few weeks, the market share of MEV-boost relays, I should say here. So you can see, total block market, MEV-boosted block market. It's a similar site to MEVwatch.info, but just another one for you guys to go and look at. And it's got a bit more charts here and a bit more data on everything that's happening here. But the reason why I like highlighting this is because the relayer diversity is just it's just one part of the diversity that we want to be seeing as part of the MEV Boost ecosystem. We also want to be seeing builder diversity and seeing where these builders send their blocks to. Like, do they send it to just Flashbots, or do they send it to Flashbots and other relays, and do they send it to only non-censoring relays? So all of that obviously is very important because we want to see non-censoring relays gain market share here. But just generally, I'm not to pick on Flashbots, but it's just great generally to see any one relayer have their dominance kind of diminished, because we don't want centralization around any one relayer, and that's why I like highlighting these things here. So you can go check out MEVboost.pics website. I don't think I have highlighted it on the refuel before, but I'll link it in the YouTube description for you to check out. And this is something you can bookmark and keep referring back to. Obviously, I'll definitely be referring back to it as time goes on, but I think it's something that is very useful for everyone. Now, speaking of MEV Boost, there's 2 other things I wanted to get through as well, which is we have another relayer that has been launched from the ETH Finance and ETH Staker folks. So this relayer is called, I believe how you pronounce it is Aeustus or something like that. I think it's Greek maybe. But yeah, that's what it's called. And there's information here in this Reddit post about this, which of course I'll link in the YouTube description below. But it was in the early testing phase a little while ago. I think they posted about it on, what date was it? About a month ago now, I think, or just over a month ago. Oh no, more over a month ago, Friday, October 28th here. And it now had their mainnet relay has been running for over a week. I think this was posted 3 days ago, so almost 2 weeks now, and it should be just as solid as the testnet relay. So their homepage is up here at relay.aeustus.live and aeustus.live, which is currently blocked by MetaMask. This was as of 3 days ago, so maybe it's not blocked now, but it shouldn't be. But yeah, you can go check out all the information here. Obviously, it's an uncensoring relayer. I don't think spinning up a censoring relayer makes much sense anymore. I kind of feel like the community would, one, shout that out and be like, why are you spinning up a censoring relay? It's pointless. No one should be using this one. And also, anyone setting up relays now, if you're setting up a censoring one, I don't know if there's really much of a market for that anymore, considering that we have more non-censoring ones right now. We have 6 of them. And actually 7, including Aeustus here. We have 7 non-censoring and 4 censoring relayers. And the 4 that are censoring, the vast majority belongs to Flashbots, and obviously Flashbots right now They are the creators of MEV-boost. I believe their builder and their relayer infrastructure is the best out there right now, just because it's obviously still very young. But the other ones that are there, some of them are gaining market share. I mentioned Block Native yesterday, and there's also Eden Network and I believe Manifold as well. But just generally, yeah, I don't know. Like, if I see someone launching a censoring relayer, I'm personally going to call it out and be like, why are you launching this? This is just kind of pointless, as I've been calling out the other ones. But I always love obviously calling out the non-censoring ones for the right reasons here. So, as I said, this one has been put together by the ETH Finance and ETH Staker communities. You can go check out the website, which I'll link in the YouTube description below, as well as the Reddit post here as well. Last up on the MEV Watch boost front is this other website that I came across today called tornado-warning.info. This is pretty fun because it's basically visualizing, I guess, like tornado warnings, but like it's referencing tornado cash, not actual tornadoes. And it says here, beware dangerous tornadoes sighted at the relays of Bloxroute and Manifold. Some carry innocent money and come completely uncensored. Zoom in and click the tornadoes to see their region. And you can kind of see here, and links to a kind of a block here of where the tornadoes actually are. So obviously, none of these tornadoes are going to be in the censoring relay territory, because it doesn't make sense for them to be there, because obviously the censoring relays are not going to process those transactions. So it's just a way to visualize where the Tornado Cash transactions are actually getting processed on. And there actually are still Tornado Cash transactions. Obviously, it's come down a lot since the OFAC sanctions happened, but they're still there and they're still getting processed because we have those non-censoring relays live as well. But yeah, that's a lot of resources there for you guys to check out. Obviously, all of it will be linked in the YouTube description below, but just figured it was worth talking about all of this as I believe the MEV boost and censorship stuff on Ethereum is still the most important thing right now. Obviously, there are other important things that are orthogonal to that, such as withdrawals being enabled on the Beacon chain. There's no new updates there, by the way. I should mention that there was a core dev call, but we're still in limbo a little bit, but there is a low chance that 4844 is going to go into Shanghai. Withdrawals definitely obviously going to Shanghai. It's kind of, they're trying to also get the other upgrade, the EOF upgrades, or EIPs I should say, into Shanghai as well, and they're still targeting that March-April timeline for that. But there is a little bit of, I guess, I wouldn't call it drama, but there are some core devs pushing back, saying that they want to see a 4844 in Shanghai, and even if it delays Shanghai by 3 months, it's worth it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a very subjective thing, because I honestly don't think that withdrawals coming 3 months later, so say they come in like June or July, is that big of a deal if we get 4844 at the same time. Because if we don't do 4844 in Shanghai, it'll be at least 6 months before we see that live on the network. So yeah, I kind of see that reasoning there. But as I said, it's still up in the air. I do put like a lowish chance on 4844 going in, but we're going to have to see how that shakes out. But as I said, those are orthogonal things to this, and they're still very important, obviously. But in terms of what's facing us right now and what we need to definitely focus on, it's this. All right, so there has been an update to the Rocketppol Smartnode stack, which is version 1.7.1. It is now live. This contains a few small fixes and new features, but most importantly, updates almost all of the clients to their latest versions. Now, I believe this is a medium priority upgrade for mini pool operators out there, so definitely upgrade when you can. I've already upgraded mine. It's a very seamless process. It's the first time upgrading my Smartnode stack, because it's my first Smartnode stack update coming out when I've been running a mini pool. I usually highlight these, but my first time actually doing it. I think obviously the most important part is the fact that all the clients have been updated to their latest versions, or almost all the clients in this update. So yeah, if you run Rocketppol infrastructure here, obviously the Smartnode stack, then definitely check this out and upgrade. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so I remember mentioning this Merge Data Challenge a little while ago on the Refuel. Well, the winners of the Merge Data Challenge have been announced now. So data scientists, engineers, and developers spent weeks poring over data before and after the merge, and the winning findings can be found at the Ethereum Foundation blog here. So basically, the prizes were given out in 3 different tiers: gold, silver, and bronze. Gold got $30,000 prize, so gold went to Pintail. So Pintail's article here, since the merge, how are things changing? And I remember I highlighted this blog post, I believe, when it first came out, and then also one for Janik here on attestations in data. So they both shared the gold prize here. And then I'm not going to read them all out, but there was silver and bronze prizes given to a lot of familiar names that you can go check out. But basically, if you want to look at and pour over all the data from before and after the merge and everything obviously got to do with the merge, things from MEV to ultrasound money to, I guess, like issuance and the impact on 12-second block times and on DeFi, you should definitely go check all this out. I'll link this in the YouTube description below, but congrats to all the winners here. It's great to see the Ethereum Foundation do things like this for things that I guess like a little bit more, maybe orthogonal to what we want to what we usually or to what the Ethereum Foundation usually funds. They obviously give out a lot of grants to open source software developers, but this was given out to people that were writing blog posts, writing analysis and data analysis on the merge, which is obviously the most important event in Ethereum's history. So congrats to the winners again. I'll link this in the YouTube description below. All right, so Terence from the Pry Labs team today put out a thread where he says, the next Capella hard fork introduces withdrawal to the consensus and the execution layers. So how does that affect the builder layer, i.e. MEV-boost, relayers, and builders? TLDR, there's not much. There's zero more complexity if relayers and builders run the correct client version. So if you're just interested in learning a bit more about this and getting a bit more into the weeds of how these things work, there's a short thread here from Terence that I just felt like was worth highlighting, which you obviously can find in the YouTube description below. But yeah, I mean, when looking at upgrades for the Ethereum chain generally, it's all about looking at the complexity that it introduces and the, I guess, like stakeholders that it impacts on both the, I guess, positive and negative side. There have been upgrades that have gone into the network before that negatively impacted some apps. Some of them included the retiring of the opcode that would allow the creation of the gas token. That definitely affected a bunch of apps, especially 1inch that was using it a lot as well. There was a few others out there that have broken old smart contracts, but the reason they're done is obviously to improve the chain, and the outreach is done, and these projects have basically warned and said, hey, this is what's going to happen because of this, and this reason. And it's only really pushed forward if it's a small number of projects that are affected rather than obviously a network-wide thing. But then when looking at things that could potentially affect network-wide stuff like MEV-boost, it's definitely good and prudent to see if they add any complexity, what are the negative and positives and all that stuff there. Obviously, with withdrawals, the big positive is that we're finally closing that loop, and we finally can say that Ethereum is, I guess, like 100% proof of stake because we have withdrawals enabled, and I've gone through the benefits of that before. But it's always good to see, how it could potentially negatively impact things such as the MEV-boost infrastructure here, which thankfully it does not. As Terence says here, there's zero more complexity, but only if the relays and builders run the correct client versions, which they should be doing anyway. All right, so I remember highlighting this tool that Liam was building basically in response to the Tornado Cash front end being pulled down and also other front ends in I guess the DeFi ecosystem not being decentralized, right? Being centralized. And I've gone, and this was called the Dappnet client. Basically, it allowed you to run local versions of these front ends in order to, to prevent you from getting censored or to prevent any censorship from going on. And I've talked about in the past how with Ethereum, you basically can achieve this. You can run your own node locally relatively easily. I mean, I highlighted the other day that you can run a full node and validators on a Rock 5B board, which is very, very low power, very kind of like a low hardware board there. So you can run that, and then you can use it as your own RPC. You can run any wallet that can connect to it using a custom RPC, whether that be MetaMask or anything else there. I think there's Frame as well as another one that people are using these days. And then you can also run your own front end. And because the Ethereum backend, especially the backend that is fully decentralized, those smart contracts such as Uniswap smart contracts are fully decentralized, you can tap into them and be a fully self-sovereign Ethereum user. So the reason why I bring this up again today is because Liam teased that he's just integrated a wallet into the Dappnet client and have some great ideas for where to go with the user experience from here. Now, this video is I believe quite small. You can't really see it on the screen. And if I go full screen, I don't know if that's coming up. I think it does come up actually if I go full screen. So I can't see my camera right now, but you can basically see the Connect wallet interface here. And as I said, it's a video, so you can go through and check out Connect wallet, and then you've got the Quenta app loaded up here. So you can go check out the video. It's 14 seconds long. I think it's more of a GIF than a video, but great to see Liam continuing to work on this. I think this is very important. This is definitely something that I feel like needs like a whole team on it, needs funding, and people will actually use this. And the thing is, though, it's more of a public good. I don't know if you would monetize this in any way. I don't know what Liam's plans are for this. It seems like a side project for him right now, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's a full-time thing that he's focusing on, and it's just in very early stages. But yeah, anyway, go check out this little video. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so something really interesting that Coinledger has introduced today. They're calling this the NFT Loss Harvestoor, a dapp that buys illiquid NFTs to help you claim losses and reduce your taxes. And they explain how it works in this thread, but the TLDR is that this dapp automatically buys your any NFT in your portfolio for 0.0000001 ETH, thus allowing you to realize any losses on the asset. Now, I asked our resident tax expert Merlo in the Daily Gwei Discord if this would be something that would be considered trying to, I don't know, create a loophole or trying to get around having to pay taxes on things. But the reason why people would use this would be because the NFTs that they are selling are illiquid. They actually can't sell them on the open market because they're NFTs that have basically gone to zero. They're worth nothing. There are no buyers for it. There's no liquidity at all for it. That's why they're illiquid NFTs or illiquid JPEGs. So instead of it just sitting in your wallet, you can actually claim the loss on it. And Merlo describes that there's actually a service for this in traditional finance for, he calls them boomer shares, where you can basically sell things that have been delisted, claim the loss on them, and kind of dispose of that asset. So if this is something that you're interested in, maybe you bought a lot of NFTs during the last 12 to 18 months, and you haven't sold them, and now they're worth basically nothing, and there's no liquidity for it, but you still want a tax loss harvest here, then this is a tool for you. And you can actually have some really big tax savings here. And Coinledger describes this. They say, say your name is John, you sold Bitcoin at the height of the market in spring of 2022 and realized $50,000 in capital gains by doing so. This 50K is now income that John has to pay taxes on, as much as 37%. Or $18,500 to Uncle Sam. So this is obviously using US tax brackets here. But what if John also spent $30,000 buying NFTs that are now essentially worthless? By harvesting his NFT losses and selling, John reduces his taxable gains to $20,000 instead of $50,000 because it's $50,000 minus $30,000. John's tax bill is now just $7,400 and he saved $11,100 by loss harvesting. So this is very important. I mean, seriously, guys, you should really look into this. Obviously, this isn't tax advice, and obviously, you should be talking to your own accountants or tax advisors. But this is Taxes 101. This is Tax Loss Harvesting 101. This is how you reduce your tax bill by selling assets that, especially with NFTs, that basically have a 0% chance of ever coming back and ever being liquid again. So you can get rid of them, dispose of them for, as I said, this smart contract will automatically buy it for just like a stupidly low price, work that out and save some money on taxes here. So yeah, definitely go check this out from Coinledger. I don't think they're the first ones to do this, but they're the first ones I've seen that have done this. So you can go to NFT Loss Harvestoor with three O's.com to check this out. But I'll of course link this thread in the YouTube description below. But definitely something you should take advantage of. I don't really have any that I would be selling on this. Maybe I do. I got to go look through it, but I didn't really buy many NFTs. I kind of steered clear of most of them, and any that I bought that were worth something, I think I already sold. Whether that was in a profit or loss, but this is definitely for those ones that are liquid, that literally there are no buyers for. The volume is basically zero over the last, maybe a few months. There's no way you could sell it anyway, so you may as well just sell it to this smart contract that'll just hold all these worthless liquid JPEGs in order to realize that loss and then carry that forward, or tax loss harvest, I should say, in your tax return. But as I said, this is not tax advice. Don't do this just because Coinledger is saying that this is how it works, or I'm saying this is how it works. Definitely speak to your own tax advisor because every jurisdiction is different, and then you can get advice from them, and they will tell you whether that you can do this or not. So yeah, as I said, I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, a little thread here from Aztec today. So they've said, pleased to announce that Aztec Connect has crossed 50,000 ETH shielded since launch. That's $60 million of ETH now being sent and earning yield privately. They've also crossed 500,000 network transactions and 5,000 blocks in production. So I like this little update that they do, showcasing that Aztec is growing, albeit slowly, I guess. Like 500,000 network transactions is nothing to write home about, but I guess for a brand new protocol that doesn't have liquidity mining or anything like that, that is definitely, brand new on the privacy side of things as well, and more expensive than other layer 2s because of that privacy stuff. The fact that people are actually still using it and using it in a I guess, like a biggish way. Obviously, if you're comparing this to things on mainnet, it's not that big, but I think comparing it to itself and seeing the growth continue here is very, very cool, and something that I want to highlight because Aztec is that other, I guess, big privacy tool that we have on Ethereum. There were two major ones, and there still are two major ones, right? Tornado Cash and Aztec, and there are others out there that are being worked on, but in terms of being live in production, Tornado Cash obviously got neutered a lot by the sanctions, but Aztec hasn't been sanctioned, I mean, yet. Maybe they will be in the future, but they do have their own protections that they put in place, but as far as I know, they're not censoring anyone. I think those protections were basically limits that they put on accounts, and obviously those limits are probably relatively easy to get around, but still I think it's worth mentioning. But just generally, I like highlighting all of the privacy tools that are that are being used on Ethereum mainnet, and obviously Aztec is one of them, which you can go check out if you haven't yet at zk.money. All right, so Rainbow announced today that bridging and cross-chain swaps have come to the Rainbow wallet. So they've designed swaps and bridges into a unified experience that's easy to use. You can go from ETH on Polygon to USDC on Optimism from the same swap interface you know and love. Each chain has their own benefits and their own vibrant ecosystems full of stuff to explore. Rainbow makes swapping and bridging so seamless that you almost forget you're moving between chains. This is cool, and they're using sockets, hop, and cross for the infrastructure in the back end here. But the reason why this is cool is because look at this interface. It's very, very simple, right? It's so simple that it's basically like a Uniswap trade, except it's using these three bridges in the background to swap between different chains. And I've said before that obviously with a multi-chain architecture, whether that be other L1s or L2s or sidechains or whatever, just hopping between different chains is going to break UX or break the user experience for users and break liquidity, but they're not critical problems. They can be resolved. And I think that the UX of bridging is really great these days. Honestly, I've done it a bunch of times and it's always been seamless for me. And also the fragmentation of liquidity hasn't been that much of a concern because that bridging is quite easy. And if you are a big player that needs lots of liquidity, layer 1 still has plenty of liquidity for you. It still has the majority of it. So you're just sitting on layer 1 anyway. And I remember arguing arguing this point quite a while ago where I said that there is no motivation for big players to move their liquidity from layer 1 to layer 2 because they don't actually need the gas savings. So the people moving to layer 2s at this early stage are people who actually benefit from the gas savings, and those aren't, by very definition, aren't going to be whales because whales don't care about spending $100 on fees if they're moving millions of dollars, right? Whereas a small player who has $1,000, obviously $100 is 10% of their transaction. They're not going to want to do that. They're going to care very much about fees. So layer 1 will remain that kind of liquidity hub for whales, but whales will also go to layer 2s if they see opportunities there as well. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of people already on there and they have a lot of money on there and they're playing around with it, but they're moving there for opportunities for, making money, not so much for saving gas fees. Whereas regular users who aren't whales are going there to save money and for money-making opportunities as well, and to use different apps and to get value out of them. But in terms of, I guess, fragmentation of liquidity, we've definitely seen, obviously, liquidity migrate from layer 1 to layer 2, but I think layer 2 is just creating its own liquidity, and there are certain chains that have more than others, but the fact that you have this bridging now and you have these cross-chain swaps just makes it much more seamless. So if you see that, okay, well, look, I need to go to this chain because this chain has an app that I want to use, but this chain doesn't. Say it's on Optimism and not on Arbitrum, then you can very easily go from Arbitrum to Optimism using one of these bridges. And if you're a Rainbow Wallet user, it's just even more seamless to go through all these assets, which is very cool. Now, obviously, the interface isn't the simplest it can be. It's still showing the gas fee here, or still showing fees in general, which is fine, I think, because honestly, until there is a service that just sits on top of this and eats the fees for users in terms of gas fees, there's always going to be that fee there. And a lot of the time you actually see the fees online when you're doing transactions, certain types of transactions. But then there are other times when you're not because the merchant's eating the fee. So for example, a payment processing fee, usually the merchant eats that. That's why you don't see that. So in crypto, there's going to be a service that sits on top of this stuff that basically eats that fee and eats the the network fee, and then you won't have to see a fee at all. It'll just be baked into the price. I mean, the merchant, okay, I shouldn't say the merchant always eats it. It's sometimes passed on to the customer depending on the fee size, and maybe it's not actually itemized on your interface that you've got. Maybe it comes as a separate invoice where it actually tells you and breaks it down for you. But usually the merchant will eat it if it's like a 30 cents transaction fee or something like that. They're not going to charge for that. But credit card fees, I mean, it's a bit different, and it just depends on obviously what card you're using and things like that as well. But generally, I love these interfaces because they're very simple, still gives you all the relevant information that you need, and allows users to get that seamless experience. All right, last up here is a blog post that Vitalik put out today called "What in the Ethereum Application Ecosystem Excites Me." Now, he's got I think 4 or 5 things here. Let me just quickly count. I think it was 5. Yes, so he's got 5 things here which I want to go through because I actually agree, or generally agree, with most of the stuff that he's excited about. So the first thing he calls out is money, the first and still most important app of crypto. This is obvious. I mean, without money, like, nothing that we've built would really work or really have any value or people would care about using. There are certain things that are being built right now that aren't really considered to be something that the money side of things is driving. So, for example, Web3 apps like Lens Protocol that's trying to decentralize social media, there are monetization things there, but the money aspect of crypto isn't something that's driving that primarily, whereas DeFi relies on the money to come first. Like, without ETH and without stablecoins, DeFi wouldn't work. I mean, there would be no point to doing DeFi, and money being at that base allows all these different things to be built. As I said, DeFi with lending and swapping and credit and all that sorts of stuff. But then, payments is also a big thing here. Like, the number one use case of blockchains today is stablecoin rails. Like, you look at the amount of volume that stablecoins do on these chains, it's always very, very high, and it is the most dominant app today. And moving ETH around, obviously, as money, is also very dominant. ETH is money in the NFT ecosystem, it's money on chain, in the DeFi ecosystem, and just like payments in general are very, very popular, not just for arbitrage, moving money between exchanges, moving money between different wallets, but also for just engaging in commerce and things like that. It's not as popular, obviously. Spending your crypto is not something people generally want to do, but I use stablecoins pretty much exclusively for, I think every single angel investment that I've done except one, I've used stablecoins for. And that's simply because it's so much easier than using the traditional finance system. I literally request for them. I'm like, hey, can I please send a stablecoin to an Ethereum address instead of going through a wire? Because it's a pain in the ass to go through a wire, especially a wire to certain jurisdictions around the world. It becomes a thing where the bank might flag it and say, hey, why are you sending money here? It's like, well, I'm investing in a project. They have to ask all these questions about it, and then they'll unlock and release the funds. And then obviously sending a wire takes longer, much, much longer. You don't really have any visibility over it. Whereas sending stablecoins on Ethereum within, one Ethereum block, if I pay the right fee, it's already delivered to their address. I can verify it for myself that it got delivered there, so they can't actually lie to me. They can send me the address. I can say, okay, well, this is the address that I sent money to. Here's the transaction hash. I sent it to you. If you don't have it, then that's on you, sort of thing. Or maybe you sent me a wallet that is part of an exchange and the exchange didn't credit it to you or anything like that. That is just so stupidly powerful. And that's why money remains the first and still most important app, as Vitalik calls it here. The second thing he brings up is DeFi, keeping it simple with DeFi. Obviously, as I said, DeFi is enabled by money. So without money, you couldn't have DeFi. But DeFi is the thing that's got the second biggest product market fit in crypto. As I said, first is stablecoins and just like money and payments in general. DeFi is secondary to that because without I'm repeating myself a lot here, but without money and payments, you can't have DeFi. So that's an obvious one. I don't really have to go into too much detail there. Then he says the third thing, the identity ecosystem, such as ENS, sign in with Ethereum, proof of humanity, POAPs, and soul-bound tokens. I think this is very important as well because ENS is used a lot within the crypto ecosystem. Sign in with Ethereum is also used a lot. Proof of humanity is used for things like Gitcoin and a few other things out there. POAPs, obviously extremely popular, and soul-bound tokens relatively new, but people are using them more and more as time goes on. And for you to have a proper on-chain economy and ecosystem, you definitely need identity to be attached to that. We're not there yet. Identity, it comes in many forms. It doesn't mean doxing your real-life identity. It just means having an online identity, whether that be as an anonymous person or whether that be as someone fully doxed. Like, for example, I could have an ENS on-chain that no one knows belongs to me. I could name it anything I want, and then do stuff on chain and maybe become like an on-chain celebrity because maybe I made some really good trades or I hold some really rare NFTs, but no one needs to know that's me, right? There are ways to definitely keep that private, but I think identity in general is obviously very, very important. Then you have DAOs. DAOs, I do agree that DAOs are important, and there are a lot of DAOs right now, but the problem with DAOs is that a lot of them are broken. A lot of them don't really function as advertised, so to speak. A lot of them are centralized, so that the D is just like completely non-existent because the D stands for decentralized, right? It doesn't exist at all. There needs to be a lot more experimentation to actually see what works and what doesn't, which is what we're doing, but I think we need to give it time to bake here. But at the same time, I feel like DAOs are just working their way back to corporate governance. And corporate governance isn't bad. Corporate governance works, and it works really well for, the corporations that use it well. There's a reason why it's been used to scale up corporations to as big as they are. There are corporations that are bigger than countries, right? So I think DAOs will get to that point, but what they'll do fundamentally is they'll change the stakeholders of that governance system. So it'll be a worldwide thing. It won't be tied to any jurisdiction. It'll be on chain. Ethereum will be the governor of that DAO, of the laws of that DAO. Smart contracts will be the governor of that. It won't be a real world thing. And members can join from all over the world. It'll be more merit based, hopefully. But still, it'll fall into the same pitfalls that traditional governance structures fall into, such as nepotism, right? And just like the social layer becoming very convoluted over time, especially the bigger the organization gets. We've seen DAOs become too big, they fall apart. Things, grind to a halt, and obviously it affects the project in a really negative way. But still, DAOs are very, very powerful and can be very powerful, and I'm glad that Vitalik called it out here. Now, as I said, this is a blog post, and this is just my brief thoughts on each of the things that he called out. So you definitely should go read the blog post if you haven't yet. I'll link it in the YouTube description. But I just figured I'd give my little high-level overview here. But last up, we have hybrid applications, and Vitalik defines these as applications that are not entirely on-chain, but they take advantage of both blockchains and other systems to improve their trust models. And he says voting is a perfect example here. And some other examples he gives: government registries, corporate accounting, games, supply chain applications, and tracking access authorization. I think games is a pretty key one here. As I've said before, games, there are going to be crypto games, but like the majority of what the game is probably going to just be off chain, and on chain will be things like the assets and maybe game moves and save states and player information and stuff like that. Whereas the actual game itself, the world, is probably going to be hosted off chain because you can't really host that on chain. For proper full blown AAA 3D games, maybe for text based games and stuff like that, you can probably do it on a layer 2 or a Validium, but definitely in a traditional database architecture and traditional non-blockchain infrastructure would work better there. But anyway, I've gone over time here, I just noticed, but as I said, the blog post linked in the YouTube description. You can go check it out, but that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.